Welcome everyone. Today is one of my favorite topics, hottest and most profitable rental markets. Because let me tell you briefly my story. When we got into real estate, my wife and I, and this is a very common mistake that most investors make. So I wanna make sure that you don't make that mistake. So we said, okay, let's get into real estate. The first question is, well, where shall we invest? So we were not quite sure where we needed to invest, nor did we understand the markets. So that was just a big problem, right? So starting with the wrong foot. So guess what? We said, we want to be in real estate and we want to buy rentals. So we ended up buying a property in a really bad neighborhood. This is a 2-flat. So what happened was that once we closed on the property, we were super excited. And then, so the first thing that we did was obviously to get the contractors out there. And guess what? Like 2 days later, the contractors told me, you know what, Hugo? We heard gunshots behind the building. So we're not going to go back to your property. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It was that bad. So we struggled getting contractors out to the neighborhood. And then the contractor that we ended up hiring was like the worst contractor. So everything that he did was so horrible. Not only that, but then guess what? The first tenant that we put into these 2-flat on the top unit never paid a single penny. So it was just a horrible experience. We ended up doing an eviction. Can you imagine for your first rental in the worst market or neighborhood where you don't have collectible tenants? I mean, it was just where contractors don't want to go. So it's pretty bad, right? So I want to make sure that all of you avoid that mistake. I want to make sure that when you invest in rentals, and let me tell you, rentals, buy and hold is one of the best exit strategies, if not the best at this point, okay? So today's topic is going to show you where you need to put your money, okay? So what we're going to talk about and analyze is the best rental markets in the city of Chicago and in the suburbs, okay? So you may wonder, well, what would it take to understand a good rental market? What makes a great city for rentals? Very, very simple. Primarily, 2 things that you want to look at. Number one, affordability, okay? So you want to get into an affordable market where your purchase price is going to be below $200,000. Ideally, the sweet spot would be somewhere in the 150 to 175, okay? The second thing that is very important, as you can imagine, rental market, you need strong rentals. Strong rentals. So you want that combination. You want a market where it's affordable, but at the same time, rents are very high. That is the secret, okay? So for that to happen, there are 2 things that you need to keep in mind. Location of the property, regardless of any market, it is critical, right? So we want to avoid being in a market where there are tons of cemeteries, train tracks, airports, rivers, creeks, factors that are going to affect the marketability and appreciation of your property. Okay, so that is right off the bat something that is very, very critical, and most people know that location, right? It's so critical. So 2 things that we're going to be focusing on today is affordable market, rents are high, but yet the infrastructure is great. So what do we mean by infrastructure? You need to have low crime, good schools, high rents, household income should be average or above the median in Illinois. Those are the components that will make a very strong rental market, okay? So now let's dive into what those markets are, okay? So what most people do is they do driving for dollars. To me, that's just such a waste of time. Why? Because we already have the data, okay? It's not like a rocket science. What's a great rental market? What's a great flipping market, okay? We know the data, the numbers, like the back of our hand, right? So we wanna make this information available to all of you. So this is what we're gonna do, very, very simple. I'm gonna show you what the markets are and how we came up with those, okay? So right here, I have this spreadsheet that, by the way, I'm gonna share with all of you, okay? So in this spreadsheet, okay, so let me show you. And by the way, we got this spreadsheet from DealVault. This is the list of the top rental markets in the suburbs. And then this is the list for Chicago, the top rental markets in Chicago. So we're gonna go and start with the suburbs, okay? So I'm gonna go scroll up to the top, and then I'm gonna quickly show you the two things that I was talking about, okay? So in here, we have a column that says sweet spot to buy, in this case, a 3-bedroom medium purchase price, okay? So in this case, we're gonna take a look at Berkeley. So the sweet spot to buy a 3-bedroom, 1 or 2 baths in Berkeley is about $157,000, okay? But look at the rents for a 3-bedroom in Berkeley. They're off the roof, $2,100. So now, let me tell you this, there's a rule of thumb. It's the 1% rule of thumb. So what does that mean? What it means is, if you're gonna spend $157,000, guess what? You need to collect at least 1% of the purchase price in rent. So what's 1% of 157,000? It's 1,500. Does that make sense? That's simple. So to analyze a deal very quickly, if it's gonna cash flow, use the 1% rule of thumb. In this case, let's say you're gonna buy this property for $157,000. It needs to cash flow, obviously, if you're gonna be collecting at least $1,570. In this case, it is way higher than that. That makes Berkeley #1 rental market. Now, in this spreadsheet, we're gonna give you a lot more information, okay? And then before I go deeper into what each of the columns mean, I wanna make sure that you understand that we categorize markets in 4 letters: A, B, C, D. A being the best, obviously the most expensive. B, it's the bread and butter. C, it's the more challenging. D is a war zone, okay? We don't even go into war zones. It's where D markets are where people think that your car is theirs, right? So definitely we're not going there because your safety is at risk. So right now, let me tell you, we need to focus on B and A markets. We are going to skip C markets, and I'm gonna tell you why. The reason why C or challenging markets are not recommended right now due to the crisis is because most blue-collar workers live in C markets. What does that mean? It means that most people who have lost their jobs live in C markets. Therefore, they're not gonna be able to pay their mortgage or their rent. Does that make sense? So those markets are being hit the hardest. That is why we're gonna be focusing on B and A markets. That's where most white-collar workers live. They are gonna feel the pinch of the crisis, but not as much. Why? Because these workers or salaried employees get to work from home remotely. So they may not necessarily lose their job. That is why A and B markets is where we need to focus right now, especially for rentals. Having said that, let's take a look and find out Berkeley, do you think, before I show you, do you think Berkeley it's an A market, a B market, or a C market? I mean, it's not a C market. If it's a very desirable where the rents are very high, my guess is that it's either like a B plus, A minus, okay? So let's go ahead and scroll to the left. Okay, so right here, area type. So this is a B market, okay? Right here. And most of the markets that I'm gonna show you today, as you can see, I'm gonna highlight them. The top rental markets are going to be B markets, okay? There's one right here that is an exception, Flossmoor. Flossmoor is an A market. Now, why are we not seeing that many A markets as the top rental markets? Very simple, because A markets are very, very desirable. Therefore, they're very expensive. Let me just give an example of A markets. You're talking like Glencoe, Norbrook, Glenview, up north, Flossmoor, down south, Hinsdale. Very, very desirable but expensive markets. Therefore, the numbers are not going to work, because let me give you an example. For instance, Evanston, right? Evanston, it has pockets, but it's primarily a B plus, A minus market. Evanston is very expensive, right? So if you buy a rental in Evanston, you're going to pay more than $250,000. That's just the average, more than $250,000. If you apply the 1% rule of thumb, that would mean that you need to collect $2,500 a month in rent. But guess what? Even though rents are strong in Evanston, they're not that high. Does that make sense? So guess what? Your numbers are not going to work, meaning it's not going to cash flow the way you need it. And most importantly, let me tell you, this is very critical. When you don't follow the 1% rule of thumb, it's going to triple. It's going to have a triple effect, and it's going to affect what lenders are looking for. Lenders are looking for what's called, it's a ratio. They care about this like so much. It's called the debt coverage ratio. What that ratio is, they want to make sure that when you rent a property, the rents cover all the operating expenses of the property, including the mortgage, tax, insurance, and you are still going to cash flow 20 to 25% surplus, okay? So if you buy in an A market, the problem is affordability, right? Prices are way too high. That is why we focus in all these top rental markets. Why? Because they're still very affordable and the rents are very high. Therefore, cash flow is awesome in these markets. So let's take a look at the second column that I show you right here, approach. So in ChicagoDealVault, for every market that you look up, we're going to tell you the approach that we recommend. And this is based on market analysis, rent analysis, how quickly properties move a month, how quickly properties are selling, how many flips are happening in that area. So we do a lot of research before we can tell you whether this is a good market for rents or for flips. As you can see, the approach on all of these markets is cash flow. And let me tell you, there are some markets, there are very few, but they're good for both flipping and renting, okay? But that's just an exception, because next week, we're gonna be talking about flipping markets. It's just a different ball game, okay? Day and night. If you wanna do flips, you cannot invest in rental markets. It is just so critical for you to understand that, okay? So that is why we tell you the approach that you need to take on every single market, okay? So now, this is something that is very, very cool that I love. To me, this is like the summary in a nutshell, the livability score, okay? What this means is this takes into account crime, schools, amenities, employment, household income, affordability. All of this is summarized into the livability score. So guess what? to us, we look at properties whose market and livability score is 65 and above, okay? That's just a rule of thumb. If we go into a market that the livability score is below 65, guess what? You're gonna have issues with crime, schools are gonna be poor, infrastructure is not gonna be there, population growth might be negative, okay? So that's a big problem, right? Some of these markets, if they're like C or D markets, guess what the population is doing? They are moving away. So the population growth is negative. So that is something really big, right? We're gonna tell you as well what the population growth is for every single market. So obviously you wanna be in markets where people are moving into, okay? Let me give you an example. For instance, Bolingbrook, population growth is like 32%. So people are moving into those markets. Now, what makes people move into markets? No, reason number one, employment, okay? Amazon happened to put a huge warehouse in Bolingbrook. So that creates employment, right? So that's what makes people move into an area. So employment is very critical because that's gonna drive population growth. So as a rule of thumb, just make sure you write these down. Livability score should be over 65, okay? And then in here, we're gonna go, here what we tell you, cost of living, crime, employment, housing, education. So we rate each individual section, okay? But the whole summary is right here in the livability score, okay? So something that, you know, you'll be surprised, like for instance, Berkeley, right? So employment is D. What it means is that there are not enough sources of employment, but yet, guess what? People want to live there. And then cost of living, D, that means that it's kind of expensive, but it's not. It's one of the most affordable places to live in for the kind of rents, okay, that owners or landlords are commanding. Education, B, so education has to do with the schools. If you have good elementary, high school, junior high, then you're gonna get like B or A, okay? So like you'll be surprised, and this blows my mind, right? So for instance, let's take a look at this. Chicago Ridge or Worth, this is like the 7th or 8th top rental market, but yet education is nowhere near good. So some of these factors, they just blow me out of the water, right? Because guess what? I thought that schools would be like the main driver, but it's not, okay? So it is just something that it's a transition in town where people want to move in, regardless of schools. So you'll be surprised to see this, but please focus on the overall livability score. So Chicago Ridge has a 67. It's in the borderline. Remember, I told you 65 and up. Flossmoor. So let's just continue going to the right. This is something that, to me, it's very, very important. Population growth. Some of these markets, you're going to see negative growth. Some of them are going to be very stable. Like, let's say Hillside. Hillside is 0.45. So this is almost very stable. Some of them, check this out, 100% growth. Plano. Okay, that is just way too far, right? Remember, when you invest in a market, as a rule of thumb, draw a 10-mile radius from where you work or from where you live, okay? Because when you start driving over 10, 15 miles, guess what? Managing contractors, tenant relationships become a challenge, right? Because it's just going to be over an hour, right? So try to draw a 10-mile radius from where you live. And then I'm going to, before I forget, I'm going to give you the link. It's a website from Google that helps you draw a radius. Okay, so I'm going to quickly Google that. Circle on my address. Okay, so draw a circle. This is the site. So I'm gonna send this to all of you via the chat. I'm gonna show you how simple this is. So I'm gonna put an address, 4740 North Cumberland Avenue. That's in Chicago, near Norwich. And then all I need to do is put however many miles. I would say don't go beyond 15 miles, and then new circle. And then boom, it's just going to draw a circle around that address, right? So these are the markets, all of these that you need to look into, okay? When analyzing markets, because if you start going beyond these, forget it. Like Plano, it's, even though it's got a great growth, is like way, so it's right here. So this is like maybe 40, 60 miles away. So it doesn't make sense, right? Even though it's a top rental market, but let's say you live in Norwich, it just doesn't make sense. So radius, distance make a big difference. Don't go beyond 15 miles, okay? Your rehabs, your rentals, flips, whatever is gonna become unmanageable. Very important, okay? So before I forget, let me send this link to everyone on the chat. I wanna make sure that you do that exercise. Not right now. I wanna make sure that you don't miss anything of what we're covering. Let's go back to the spreadsheet, okay? I wanna make sure that you fully understand these. So population growth is obviously a big factor, okay? So I wanna see some positive growth. So let's say Streamwood, 11%, okay? So we just bought a property in December in Streamwood, and it's just a great rental market, okay? So we were able to rent the property like within 2 weeks, great tenants. And as you can see, what's the livability score? 74, right? So it's just a safe, solid rental market, okay? Streamwood. And that is very close to Chambord, okay? Now let's just go over the numbers for Streamwood to give an example. So in here, Chambord, the sales median is 189. So we bought it for 133. We put in about 20,000, 23,000. So all in is about 155. So we are within the median sales price, okay? Actually below that. Obviously, the lesser you pay, the better off you're gonna be. And then the rents, look at the rent, 1650. So it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We were able to rent it for 1770. So we were able to command higher than the median, okay? So that, I'm telling you, it's just a great rental market. All these markets that we're giving you, if you buy it for the sales median price or below, you're gonna cash flow. Remember the 1% rule of thumb? If we bought the property, let's say all in 150,000, and we're renting it for 1770, right? So 1% is 1,500, and we're renting it for 1770. So right off the bat, I know the property is gonna cash flow. So it cash flows close to 300, okay? Now, if we continue to, let me take a look at this column, view. I'm gonna show the formula bar because I wanna see what it says. Okay, this is number of flips. We're not gonna look into flips right now. So this is the 2 columns that you need to focus on, okay? Sweet spot to buy the property and how much are you gonna be renting the properties for. So let's just quickly go down the list. Berkeley, Hillside, number 2, Bridgeview, Allsip, Chicago Ridge, Worth. Worth is kind of far. So even though it's a great rental market, we don't even look at properties in Worth. Flossmoor. Something to keep in mind that I do want to mention is taxes, okay? Because nowhere in this spreadsheet do we talk about taxes. Taxes could be a deal breaker, okay? So for instance, Flossmoor, it's a suburb where taxes are very high. So that's something that you need to be aware of, okay? Obviously, every property is different, and you can appeal the taxes, but that could be a deal breaker, okay? So keep that in mind. Even if you command high rents in Flossmoor, taxes could kill the deal, okay? Because some of these houses, especially like Flossmoor, first of all, square footage. These houses are like a shoebox. They have at least like 2,000 square feet, and taxes are somewhere in the 8,000 range, 8, 9, 10,000. So be aware of that, because the sweet spot of rentals is when the purchase price is less than 175, the square footage is less than 1,700, okay? And obviously, the less the taxes, the better, right? You don't want to kill the deal due to the taxes. So that's something, as a parenthesis, to keep in mind. Taxes where you're going to be paying 7, 8, 9,000 is going to kill your cash flow. Franklin Park, Streamwood, very close to, right next to Schaumburg, south of Elgin, North Lake. Justice is, again, very, very far. Island Lake, Lyon, Plano, Glenwood, Midlothian. A lot of people are investing in Midlothian. Midlothian, I believe, is a C market. Yeah, it's a C market, okay? So remember, be aware of these markets, because right now, they are being hit the hardest, C markets. So even if Plano has a population growth of 100%, okay, in the last 12 months. So they pretty much double, right? So people are like migrating like crazy to Plano because it's very affordable. Be cautious, because these markets have been hit the hardest, okay? Now let's continue going down to Stone Park, Evergreen Park. It's a great rental market. We have a few properties in Evergreen Park. It's just a great rental market. They just fly. The minute you put them on the market, you get a lot of inquiries, a lot of people applying for it. Why? Don't ask me why, but it's just a great rental market. Because if I look at the schools, let me show you. Yeah, schools in here are very, very good. Education A. Now the question is, why is this? Oh, this is a B market. Yeah, Evergreen Park. I was thinking C market. So here, education is driving, since it's great schools in Evergreen Park, that's driving this market to be B. 75 livability score, despite the fact that it doesn't have enough sources of employment. So what does this tell you? Like, people who live in Evergreen Park may not work in Evergreen Park because there are not too many sources of employment. But guess what? Their children are going to go to great schools. That is why they are willing to pay like high rents. So what's the median? Sales price is 170 in Evergreen Park, but the rents are pretty strong. So let me just scroll to the right. And we're looking at, yeah, 1,500, at least 1,500, okay? For a 3-bedroom, it could go maybe even higher, 1,500, 1,600 for a 3-bedroom in Evergreen Park. And the last one is Berkman. So Berkman is also a hot rental market. So I just want to make sure that you fully understand that if you're going to do rentals, you've got to invest in these top rental markets. If you start looking at other markets, it's just not gonna, your numbers are not gonna be there. That's plain simple. Your numbers are not gonna be there because you will overpay for the property and the rents are not gonna be there for your cash flow. And guess what? If your cash flow is not there, banks, especially today, are not going to fund the deal because they're gonna ask you, what's gonna be your exit strategy? And if you say rentals, the first thing they're gonna do is making sure that the debt coverage ratio is over 1.2. And if you don't have cash flow, it's not gonna be nowhere near that. Okay, so that is very, very important. If you look at top rental markets, so you meet the bank's criteria, and obviously that you cash flow. So these are the top rental markets in the suburbs. Now let me show you the ones in the city, okay? So Chicago, okay, so this is a little bit a different ball game. So area types, these are all C markets, but they're like great rental markets. But remember, again, right now, due to the crisis, be cautious of these. Why? Because the purchase price is relatively low for the rents that you collect. But always keep in mind the 1% rule of thumb, okay? What you pay, take 1% of that, and that's what you need to collect in rent. Like for instance, Pullman, okay? So the sweet spot to buy a single family home is like 50,000, but guess what? You're gonna be collecting like 1,100 in rent. So it's gonna cash flow all day long. But again, be mindful, this is a C market, okay? And then let's look at the livability score. It's 57. So in here, crime is high, employment, you know, you don't have many sources of employment. And then look at this, population growth is negative 20%. So people are moving away from Pullman. Okay, does that make sense? But don't get me wrong, many investors like these type of markets. Why? Because of the cash flow. So they're willing to take the risk, okay, in exchange for a greater return, in this case, cash flow. So the entry barrier to buy a single family home in Pullman is very, very low. Therefore, they can afford to buy 2, 3 rentals and then cash flow like no tomorrow, okay? But obviously, you do have to worry about vacancies, right? Because in this case, when people are migrating, vacancy might be an issue. Not only that, but then getting collectible tenants. If they lose their job due to the crisis, then you're just gonna struggle. However, let me just give you a tip of advice. Many people who invest in C markets, they tend to look for Section 8 tenants. Why? Because the rent is secure. Even if we have this crisis right now, guess what? The government will not miss a single payment. So if you have Section 8 tenants, you will get your money on the first, okay? So that's a good thing. Okay, so there's a question. Somebody's asking, Evergreen Park, the population is decreasing. So let me just quickly take a look at that, what the population is in Evergreen Park, okay? So Evergreen Park, population, let me scroll to the right. Okay, negative 431. Yeah, I think one of the big factors would be employment, right? So if you don't have enough sources of employment, then people will eventually move out, especially if they have a big commute, okay? But other than that, some families are willing to sacrifice the commute in exchange for better schools. So negative 4% is not a big deal, unlike like 20%, right? 20% negative growth, it's a big deal, right? But I would say plus minus 5, 10%, it's just neutral. But anything that is over 10%, it's a big deal, okay? So we have analyzed over 300 areas in Illinois. So we'll give you every single detail. So somebody's asking about, hey, this market, H. Welch. What about, I've never heard that market, but let me just show you. I'm gonna go to DealVault to show you how we got this data. It is very, very simple. So the way to do that is when you access DealVault, you're gonna click on area reports, and then all we did was give me the top B markets, BC markets, that's what we did, that are great for cash flow or rentals. And then click on search. Boom. So it gives you all the markets. So what I like to do is I like to sort by the sweet spot to buy, right? Sweet spot to buy, detached, right here. So I go from cheapest to most expensive, right here. So you can pretty much take a look at every single market right here. So I like to stay below 200,000. So you can go to the next page. We have like over 200 markets right here. But as you can see, the purchase price goes up. So I'm gonna go to the last one, okay? So the last one, look at this, Oakbrook. Oakbrook, it's quite expensive, right? So it could be great for flips, for cash flow. But look at this, sweet spot to buy a single family home is 740,000. What's the rent like in Oakbrook? I mean, it's going to be pretty high, but it's not going to be something that the numbers are going to work. You see, it's going to be 2,000. So it's not going to work, right? When you pay over $500,000 and you're collecting 2,000, it's not going to work. What about this one? We have Evanston. Oh, that's the town I was talking about. So look at this. Sweet spot to buy a single family home in Evanston is over $500,000. Rents that you're collecting is $2,750. So it's not even, it's like half a percent, right? So I told you, you've got to collect at least 1% of what you are paying for the property. So if you pay $500,000, guess what? You need to collect at least 5,000 in rent. And that's not going to happen in Evanston. Therefore, it's not a top rental market. It could be a great market for flips, yeah, but not for rents, okay? You've got to stay below the 200,000 mark. Why? Because 1% of 200,000 is 2,000, right? So typically, once you start getting into 18, 19, 2,000 rents, I mean, the house needs to be like in really good shape in a good neighborhood, right? So that is why you need to pay less than 200,000 for the rental. Otherwise, your numbers are not going to work. So somebody gave me, so I'm going to clear these. All you need to do if you're interested in a market, let me see, type in that market and search. Let me see if we have it. No, we don't have this market. This is probably very far. So if we don't have the market, you just need to send us an email and then we will generate the market for you, okay? So in about 24 hours. So let me just show you what the reports look like and how to interpret those reports. So right here, I want to search B markets for cash flow, okay? And then I want to pull up Berkeley. So the way you do is just scroll to the right and then click on this icon. So Berkeley is this one. I'm just gonna click on this icon and it's going to open. This is the detailed report, okay? So this is gonna give you everything like super detailed. What I show you in Excel is just a quick summary because that's what my wife and I wanted to know. I said, you know, I cannot go and analyze every single market. I just wanna know, give me the top rental markets. Give me the top flipping markets. And that's what we're gonna focus on. Does that make sense? So Berkeley, we give you the geographic location on the map, and then this is where we give you the area in a nutshell and the livability score, right? So everything that you see in the report is on the spreadsheet, okay? So this is the crime, it goes into the schools, household income. So let's say the median is 57 in Illinois and Berkeley has 64,000. So it's above the median. Population growth is 0.50, so it's pretty stable. Demographics, this is industry. So this tells you a breakdown of the employers, okay? Housing occupancy, so this tells you like vacancy rates. Like for instance, owner occupied 82%, renter occupancy 13%. So there are more owners than renters. And then vacancy, if I see vacancy, it is vacant housing units, 3.98%. So it's anything less than 10% is just great. So it's a B market for rentals. And we just give you more details. We're gonna go over these when we talk about the flipping markets, okay? So we tell you the sweet spot to buy, 157, and then below we do the in-depth analysis of the rents, right? How much you're gonna be commanding. So as you can see, the rents, the median rents in Berkeley are super, super high, okay? 2,100 for a 3-bedroom. So this is just an example. You can look up any market right here and we'll give you the report. So before we continue, are there any questions that I can answer? Because we've covered that a lot. I want to make sure that you understand everything we've been going over. Okay, somebody's asking Portage Park. Okay, so you can just put in the initials for, let me see. Oh, I need to clear my previous search. Portage Park. Okay, right here. So it's right here, Portage Park. So you can see the summary right here. So it's a C market. We recommend flip and cash flow. Livability score is 67. So it's a good market. But let's look at the sweet spot to buy. It's 284. What about the median rental income for a 3-bedroom? 1700. So as you can see, this is a C market, but it's kind of expensive to get into this market. 284 is a sweet spot to buy a 3-bedroom, and the rents are 1700, right? So your numbers are not going to work. So if you buy this property, let's say for 250, and you are only going to collect 1700, it's not the 1% rule of thumb. So your numbers are not going to work. Does that make sense? So it is so critical. And the point, friends, is that you've got to be able to analyze areas in seconds, not 30 minutes, 40 minutes. No, just like somebody sent me, Betty sent me, no, Mariana sent me Portage Park, right? In just 2 seconds, I'm able to tell you, if you're going to buy a house in Portage Park, it better be less than 170, because the rents there, you're going to be collecting about 1700 for a 3-bedroom, right? Now, there's another question from Betty. How many rentals can we own at a time? It's unlimited, okay? So we use what's called asset-based lenders. So they're not going to be looking at your FICO score, your tax, your employment history, all of that, none of that. They're going to be looking at the deal, right? So if you have a great deal, you're going to get funding for it. So you can have X number of rentals. Okay, so we have close to 29 rentals. Andrew Rahul, they own close to 200 rentals. So you can have unlimited number of rentals, right? So long the numbers work. Okay, that is the number one rule. Your numbers need to work, meaning you have to cash flow. What about floodplain? Yeah, that's a great point, right? Some areas are in a floodplain. So that's something, not an area, some properties, right, are in a floodplain. So that's something that you need to be able to assess very, very quickly. So let me just give you a quick example. Okay, so for instance, I'm gonna pull up a property right here. I'm gonna do, somebody's asking about floodplains. So power search, we were the other day analyzing this property, 256 South Brookdale. Yeah, this one, Palatine, okay? So let me show you, when you look at a property, you've gotta make sure the location is good, right? So this is a property, right? This is the street view. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna toggle to the map view, okay? So all I need to do is click right here, map view. If I zoom in, you're gonna see a creek right here. Let me zoom in further. You see this, Salt Creek? Well, guess what? If I copy paste this address, and then right here in DealVault, as part of the analysis, flooding, right here, there's a tab. So we're gonna take you to the FEMA website, and all you need to do is paste the address right here, search, and this happens to be in a floodplain. So if I scroll down, boom. So this property is in a floodplain. So guess what? This property floods big time. Therefore, we are going to skip this property. Okay, so we just can't invest in a property that is gonna flood. So yeah, that's how simple it is to find out floodplains. So through ChicagoDealVault, we give you the tools for the analysis of the market, and then you can go deeper into each area. You know, something that I want to show you that is so cool, talking about markets, in ChicagoDealVault, once you pull up a property, because what I showed you before, like the area report, let me just pull this one for instance. Okay, so this is, what area are we looking at right now? I think this is Portage Park, right? So this is the report at the area level, right? But what about at the individual level? So I pull this property. Now I want to know the details of this property in reference to the entire market. It is so freaking cool. Let me show you. Click on this tab that says Market Overview right here. Next to owner loan and before market trend. So right here, this is the property. I'm gonna scroll down and then I'm gonna click on schools, for instance. This is one of my favorite parts. So we have the subject property is right here and it tells me the schools, 7 out of 10 for elementary and then 8 and 10 so for high school. So I can see what's going on at the property level. And then I can click on Street View right here, right? Look at the property right there, the map. Right here, I can see the crime. So it's all blue, that means that it's safe. If it was like dark blue, it's not safe. Commute, shop and eat. So right here, I just click on these upper tabs. So it tells you everything that is happening around the property or that you really need to know at the property level. The reports are at the neighborhood or area level, but once you start analyzing a property, you can use Market Overview. Okay, that's just gonna give you at the property level everything that you need to know, crime-wise, commute, schools, street view, maps, flooding, everything at the property level. So once you start going deeper into a single property analysis, this is where you need to come. Market Overview. Okay. Are there any other questions that I can quickly cover before we continue? Okay, so somebody's asking, Betty, where can we find these asset-based lenders? Okay, so if you're part of DealVault, we have right here, let me go back to this, to DealVault, on their preferred partners. Preferred partners, we have Harmony Lenders right here. And what we've done, Harmony Lenders right here. What we've done is, due to the crisis, we have put together a list of about 20 Harmony lenders, asset-based, that are lending today in this crisis, right? So if you're a DealVault member, please send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault.com, and then we're gonna send you a list of all the asset-based lenders that are lending today, okay? Okay, are there any other questions? Oh, here, Marina, thank you. 284 sale price does not exist since 2012. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the condition, right, of the property. You can find, even in A areas, you can still find like great deals. Let me just give you an example. Like, for instance, I'm gonna pull up, a great market is Mount Prospect. So Mount Prospect is an A market, right? Mount Prospect, and then sweet spot to buy a home is for 326, right? The rents are like 1,600, but you see the sweet spot to buy detached, 326, right? This is A market, very desirable. Mount Prospect, guess what? We have this property, let me show you this, 915 South Elmhurst in Mount Prospect. We have this property under contract for 160,000, and this is an A market, okay? This is a bank-owned property, and in fact, it went back to the bank for 159. That's how much we're buying it from the bank, for 160,000. This is an A market. This property is worth close to 270. We're buying it for almost 60 cents on the dollar. So it's just it's an awesome deal. It's gonna have cash flow all day long. So even if it's an A market, you can still find great deals, right? Because our sweet spot to buy, as I told you, it's gotta be below 200,000. So right now, if I can buy this property in an A market for 160,000, it's like a no-brainer. And guess what? This property doesn't need much in rehab. It's this property right here. It's a three-bedroom, two bath, full finished basement, all new mechanicals. It needs very little work. It just needs a new kitchen, updating the bathroom, the top bathroom on the first floor. That's pretty much it. It's got a one-car garage, big backyard. So it's just an awesome deal, right? Home run deal. So it's just an example. Even though the sweet spot to buy is 300 and, what was that? Area reports, 326. It doesn't mean that you cannot find awesome deals in those areas. Does that make sense, Marina? Okay. Then are there any other questions? Perfect. So I just wanted to, I want to summarize everything that we talked about because I want to make sure that you fully understand everything that we're talking about. So one of the main mistakes that people make when investing in real estate is that they invest in the wrong market. So if you're going to do rentals, please invest in the top rental markets. If you're going to do flips, do not invest in the top rental markets, invest in the top flipping markets. It's like day and night. Okay, so we're going to give you, before I forget, so I'm going to give you the, send us an email and we're going to share the spreadsheet, okay, that I show you, okay, with the top rental markets. So all of you will get that spreadsheet of the top rental markets because I want to make sure that you invest in the right places. And then two things that are important when we look at the top rental markets, that the affordability is there. So you have to buy properties for less than 200,000, but yet you've got to command high rents over 1,500. Okay, that's the rule. And remember the 1% rule of thumb. If you buy something for 150,000, guess how much you need to collect? 1% in rent. That makes it 1,500. If you're not collecting 1,500, your cash flow will not be there. Therefore, funding is going to be an issue for asset-based lenders. They're going to run the numbers very quickly, and it's not going to work. Something that I like to look at when I further analyze the market is the livability score, 65 and above. That pretty much summarizes employment, crime, schools, household income, vacancy rates, rents. So make sure that livability score, it's right here. Anything greater than 65 and up, that's the rule of thumb, okay? It's a good market. If you see, let me give you an example. For instance, Riverdale, it's a D market. River, search, right here, the first one, Riverdale. It's a D area. Livability score is 48, right? So even if somebody comes to you and says, you know, I've got a great deal in Riverdale, well, look, sweet spot to buy, 12,500. Rents, 1,100. But guess what? Vacancies in Riverdale is over 25%. So you're going to be so lucky if you rent your property in 3 months. And good luck getting a collectible tenant. Does that make sense? So be careful, okay? So livability score, it's a great indicator, 65 and above, okay? Now, another question is, do lenders give any kind of benefits to veterans, Matt? Definitely. Yeah, if you're a veteran, you can get better rates, better terms, of course. You can even get a VA loan, right? So it's just a loan specifically for veterans. So absolutely. So I can refer you to Juan Loya. He's our conventional lender from Homebridge. And he can, I believe he's got VA loans available. So if you're a veteran, for sure, you're going to have better terms and better loans. So I just want to make sure that you understand, summarize affordability, high rents, below 200, rents should be at least 1%. Look for rents 1,500 and up, and then livability score 65 and up. Okay, that is just a simple rule of thumb, and you're going to be cash flowing. And right now is the time to invest in rentals. Why? Because flips are not moving due to the crisis. Okay, so having said that, I want to make sure that concludes today's topic on investing in top rental markets. There's another question. How do you calculate the debt ratio, and also does the formula count for commercial apartment buildings? We only analyze residential, so up to 4 units. Anything that is 5 and up is commercial, so we don't analyze commercial units. The debt coverage ratio is computed by taking the NOI, net operating income, which is your income minus your operating expenses. That gives you your net operating income divided by the mortgage, okay, or your debt service. Okay, so that needs to be 1.2 or above. That's how the banks, they want to see 1.2 and up debt coverage ratio. But we're going to have a topic just on funding, okay? So don't get hung up on that. Just make sure that you collect at least 1% of what you pay for the property. Now, having said that, if there are no further questions, I want to show you the upcoming events that we have. So critical events. I'm super excited about these events this week, next week. So let me just tell you what those are.